In this video, I'm going to show you how I took this dog from not being very interested in the play, getting easily distracted by things in the environment, it doesn't last very long, to now being obsessed with play. We can go to a completely new place he's never been to before, around distractions, and he just wants to play. It's his favorite thing ever. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 things that I did to create this obsession. So step number 1 is teaching him how to play. A lot of people don't realize this, but play is something that you have to teach. Right? When I first started working with Arrow, I could tell immediately that this dog has some drive, right? He likes to chase after squirrels and rabbits in the environment, so he's got prey drive, but he's not super interested in the ball or the toys or anything like that. He just hasn't learned yet that he can express this prey drive in the play with a human. That's something I have to teach. So let me show you how I did it. So the goal at this stage is just to teach him that playing with me is fun. That's it. That's the only goal. So I set up daily play sessions. So I played with him in the backyard, first thing in the morning, every day for 5 to 10 minutes, consistently, every day. And the reason I did it first thing in the morning is just because I noticed that this is the time of day where he had a little bit of excess energy. Right? He'd come out of his crate after sleeping all night, come into the backyard, and he was just a little bit more riled up than usual. So I figured this would be a perfect time to start developing some play. So I'd pick a toy, and at first I'm just switching it up, every day. So some days I'd come out with a ball, other days it'd be more of a tug toy, some days it'd be a ball on a rope, other days it'd be a squeaky toy, and I'm just switching it up, just experimenting and trying to figure out what he likes and what gets him going. So we'd go out into the backyard on a 30-foot long line because at this point I didn't have any control of him yet, so I need him on a leash, of course. Even though we're in the backyard, I still need a way to make control, so I need him on a 30-foot long line, and then I would let him go potty and stuff in the backyard, and then I would signal the beginning of our play session with, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" This signals the beginning of our session, and then we would play. So at first, I just play alone. So I'd pop out that toy, and then he's like, "I'm not interested." And then he goes to sniffing and all of this stuff. And I would just play by myself. So I'm throwing the toy and I'm chasing after it. And I'm grabbing the toy and I'm moving it around. Oh. And then I throw the toy and I chase after it. And I'm having a great time by myself. See, I'm having a blast. Like, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life. This is the best thing ever. And I'm just playing alone. And I'm keeping the invite open. He's welcome to join at any time, but I'm not forcing him to. I'm playing alone. I'm having tons of fun by myself. You can join too, but I'm not forcing him to. So there's really 2 options here. He either chooses to ignore me and just do his thing, or he chooses to play with me. Those are the only 2 options. So in either of which is completely fine with me. So if he chooses to ignore me, that's fine. I'm having a great time by myself. This is the most fun I've ever had. This is amazing. And even though he's not playing with me, he sees it. He sees I'm having a great time. He sees all this fun I'm having. He knows I'm having fun. You see, even if he's not choosing to play with me yet. And that's still a win in my book. Or option 2, he actually chooses to play with me. So he's like, "Hold on, what are you doing over there? Right? What are you chasing after that thing for? Wait, what is that thing that you have? Wait, what is that?" Right? He starts to get a little interested in it, right? I throw that ball and I chase after it. He starts chasing along with me. I'm encouraging this, right? He decides he wants to grab onto it. I encourage this, right? So I'm starting to just show him that, like, yeah, buddy, you can join me at any time. Like this is tons of fun and you're welcome to join in at any point in time. And when he does, I'm careful to encourage this behavior. So that's it. That's like 5 to 10 minutes of just that, of just playing alone, inviting him to play with me. And if he chooses to play, fantastic. I'm going to develop it. And then if he doesn't, that's fine. He saw me play the whole time. And then I end the session with all done. And then I put the toy away. Right? So the play session has a clear beginning and a clear end. The key concept that I want you to all take away from this is that play is voluntary. All right? We cannot force the dog to play. We can only create the conditions for play to occur and then invite the dog to play with us. I see so many people make this mistake. I watch them and they're like, "Miles, my dog won't play." And they're like, they have the ball and they're trying to shove the ball in the dog's mouth. They're like, take it. Play with me." And the dog is just like, oh, I don't want this. Like, what are you doing? Right? This is not how you teach the dog to play. And so do not, like I repeat, do not try to force the dog to play with you. It will not go well. In most cases, you'll actually create more of an aversion to playing with you. That's not how you introduce play to a dog, right? Play by yourself. Have a great time and invite the dog to join you at any time. So that's the daily play sessions. And by doing it at the same time every day, it gives the dog a consistent pattern that they can start looking forward to and start anticipating. So having that clearly defined play window can be very helpful in fostering play within the dog. So the next piece of this is regulating your emotions and internal dialogue. So when you're teaching dogs to play, it's incredibly easy to feel frustrated. And that's the reason why most people quit and they just say, oh, my dog doesn't like to play, and they just give up. Because it feels like you're not making any progress, and it's really annoying when you're putting in so much effort only for the dog to ignore you. I feel you. I get frustrated during sessions too. However, the dogs will pick up on your frustration immediately, and it will kill the entire play session. It will kill it. Like it's kind of the same as if you remember, like when you were a little kid, if you've ever playing with an adult and you were very sensitive just to their emotions, if you could tell they were upset or frustrated with you, it would immediately just put you off to it. And it's the same with the dogs. They're very sensitive to this. And so you have to be careful to not bring your frustration into the play session. This is a part of the process. So here are two things that I did whenever I started feeling frustrated when I was playing with Arrow. So the first thing I did was just hide my frustration and put on a good act. So I take a deep breath and I just hide it. And the key here though is you have to be such a good actor that you can convince yourself that you're actually having tons of fun. So you just put on an act, you just fake it. And you can't allow that frustration to kind of leak out in the little things that you do, because the dog will pick up on it immediately. And the second thing that I did was sometimes I would just end the play session early because I was bringing too much of my emotions into the training. Like I remember there were a few times when I had to do this. Like it was just like for whatever reason, I was just really getting frustrated. Like, I'd be playing by myself and he just like so into the environment, and I would just end it. I just end it because I could make the call at that point that like, okay, if I continue right now, the likelihood that I do something that I regret later or I end up doing something that's counterproductive to the training is relatively high. So let's just end it. Let's just cut the losses. Let's just end it and let's try again tomorrow. All right. There were a few times when I had to do that. And so those are just a couple tips that I'll give you, but you really don't want to bring that negative emotion into the play because that'll kill it entirely. And a pro tip that I have for you is try speaking out loud as you play. This will get you to hear your internal dialogue, and your internal dialogue is everything, right? If you're doing a session with the dog and internally you're very frustrated and your internal dialogue is like, man, this freaking dog, I'm doing all this work and you're just ignoring. If that's what you're thinking, like that's all going to come out in your behavior and it's going to hurt your session. But if your internal dialogue is much more playful, it's joking, it's like you're kind of just making fun of, what you're doing and what the dog is doing, it changes what you're doing in the moment. So like, you're playing with the dog, you throw after it and they kind of do a half run. You're like, oh, you almost got it. Right. And then you grab it. You're like, oh, look what I got. And then you throw it. You're like, wow, isn't this the most fun thing ever? And then they grab onto it. You're like, yeah, you got it. And then I kind of tug on it a little bit and they kind of tug back a little bit. Wow. Oh, you're so strong. Even if they're not, right? You're just kind of joking about it, right? And then they get distracted by something and like, oh, you got distracted already? And then you throw it, right? You see, like you're kind of just joking about it in your mind and you're maintaining that playful, friendly energy in the play. And that's key, right? That's key. And just speaking out loud can help you recognize your internal dialogue and gets you to notice it and then adjust it during the session. So that's just a pro tip for you. So the next part is just to experiment and observe. So just try stuff and see what happens, right? Don't be afraid to experiment and look a little silly, all right? Try different toys, try different things. What happens if you get on your knees during the play, right? And you get on the floor with the dog. What happens if you do a short toss? What happens if you do a long toss? What happens if you use a squeaky toy? What happens if when you're playing tug, you do a quick tug? What happens if you do a steady tug, right? Just try different things and see what happens and keep doing more of what works and stop doing what doesn't. And the key here in this point is to be observant, but still remain present. The key during play is just to be in the moment with the dog. Kids are really good at this because kids are always in the moment, just like dogs. They're not like adults. We're all just overcomplicating everything. Stay in the moment, be observant, keep that keen eye so you can notice things, but remain present. That's the real important part because your dog is in the present moment. And so you've got to meet them there. And that's the beautiful thing about play as a whole is like when you go out and you play with your dog, you're not thinking about anything else except playing with the dog. That's what makes it so fun, right? Is it's so interactive. Like it just immediately grounds you to the present. All the things that you were thinking about, and you're just focused on this one thing. That's what makes it so fun. And so just something I want you to keep in mind. All right. The next point is you're on the right track when your dog starts getting excited because they know you're about to play. All right. So this is a magical moment when this happens. And I want you to celebrate this. Okay. When you go out into the backyard or your room that you play in or whatever, that one park, whatever it is, and your dog starts to get excited, they're like, hold on, I think we're about to play here. All right, hold on, I think I know what's going to happen now, right? Or you say, are you ready? And your dog's like, hold on, I'm ready for this. I know what that means, right? When you start to see that, celebrate that moment. That is a magical moment, all right? It is so powerful. And again, it really helps to have those daily play sessions in the same environment, same time, so it's consistent. It's a consistent pattern that the dog can start to recognize and anticipate. And at this stage also, I just want to wrap this up by saying more fun, less rules, all right? So at this stage, the focus is on having fun. I can make all the rules later. I'm not worried about the dog, not bringing the toy back or, jumping up on me or whatever. I'm literally not worried about that at all. I'm just focused on having fun. A mistake that I see a lot of people make is focusing too much on the rules and the bad behaviors, which can turn the dog off to playing with you entirely. So like in the beginning with Arrow, like I'm just focused on the play. I'm just focused on having fun. Like he wasn't doing anything, particularly bad. He would kind of jump up towards me sometimes, but like it's not a big deal right now. I'll fix that at any point in time in the future. Right now, I just want playing with me to be fun. So that's a mistake I see a lot of people make, and it can turn the dog off to play entirely. The first rule that I teach, the first real rule that I teach in the context of play is the out command. All right, so teaching the dog to let go of the toy, but that's it. That's it. I'm just focused on having fun, and that's the only rule pretty much that I'll add at this stage. Step number 2 is teaching him the game. So at this point, the goal is to teach him the 2 primary games, tug and fetch. Tug is a competitive game between me and him. We're competing against each other to win the toy. Fetch is a cooperative game where we're cooperating and working together to play the game and keep the game going. So very different from one another, but they're both games nonetheless. So here's the difference between play and games, right? You notice up here we taught play, but over here we're teaching games. So what's the difference? Well, play is to engage in an activity for fun or recreation rather than for a serious purpose. So it's just for fun. A game is a form of play that's played according to rules and decided by skill, strength, or ability. You see the difference? Like, for example, there's a huge difference between kids playing with the ball and kids playing soccer. See the difference? They are completely different things. And this is what takes the play with the dog to the next level, is once you're able to teach the dog a game, a true game that has an objective, it has rules, there's competition, like that is where the play just explodes. In order to teach the dog the games, we have to teach him the objective or the goal of the game. That's the first step in teaching a game, right? Like for example, when you're teaching a little kid, like a 3-year-old, how to play basketball, It's the first thing you do. Well, you teach him that when you have the ball and you throw it in the net, yay, right? That's the objective. That's the goal. This is what we do with the ball in the net. When it goes in, nice job, right? They see you throw the ball in, woo! You help them throw the ball in, woo! They start to learn, oh, okay, this is how the game is played. I see. They start to learn the objective of it. So how can I teach the objective for a game like tug? Well, what is tug? Well, tug is a competitive game between me and him where we're competing against each other to win possession of the toy. How can I teach him that that's the goal? How can I teach him that that's what we're trying to do here? Well, you see, think creatively. Think about what we did with that kid with the basketball. How can we reward those moments? Well, if the goal is to win possession from me, I should reward any effort that he makes to win possession from me. All right, so when I'm holding the toy and he's got a grip on it and he makes that slight effort, right, he kind of pulls back into it, I might, give into it, make a little vocalization, right, give into it, show him that, wow, he just pulled me like that. Wow. You see, I'm reinforcing this behavior. I'm rewarding this behavior. I'm increasing the frequency of it. If let's say he gives a good head shake, he tries to rip that toy out of my hand, and I just let it slip out of my hand at just the right moment, and he feels like he just ripped it out of my hands. Oh, now he's like, ooh, I just want possession of it, right? I want it. Wow, when I did that, I got the toy. You see, we're rewarding this behavior. And then he has it. He's got possession of the toy and I'm celebrating with it. Nice job, buddy. Wow, what you got, right? I'm celebrating with him. Yeah, you want it, man. You want it. You see, I'm rewarding that behavior that I'm looking for. That's how we teach the objective. And it can be the same if I win the toy, right? Imagine I move it quickly and I pop the toy out of his mouth. Maybe he has a weak grip. So I pop it out of his mouth and then, ooh, I want it. Ooh, you can't get it, right? Playing a little bit of keep away with him. And he's like, oh, he won it. And he's trying to get it. And then he gets it again. You see? But now he's learning, oh, man, when I wasn't holding on like that, he won the toy from me, right? Now I really want to get it again. You see? And so I'm starting to teach him the objective of the game in these ways. You see how it works? A lot of people make the mistake of teaching the wrong objective, right? Like I see this all the time. Like they're playing tug with the dog, and then the dog is just kind of holding it, right? Just holding it. And then they just let go. They just let go of it, right? Because they hear all the time online that you should let the dog win, and they just let go. And the dog just has it. It's like, okay, I have the toy now. What did you just reinforce? What behavior did you just reinforce in that moment? Well, you just taught the dog that when you just hang on passively to the toy, at some point I'll just let go and then you'll have it. That's the behavior you just rewarded, right? And so that is not going to create a dog who he doesn't understand the objective of the game. He just thinks if he holds it, eventually you'll let go of it and then he'll have it. That's not the game. You see, this would be like if you were teaching the kid how to play basketball and like he's just holding the ball and then you're just like, yay! And it's like, huh? What's the goal here? Like, am I supposed to get the ball in the hoop or not? You see, like you got to be very careful with the behaviors you're rewarding. So don't just let the dog win. Like I see a lot of people online say, be very careful on what moments you're rewarding. Are you rewarding the dog when they're making that good effort? Are you rewarding the dog when they make that good head shake? Those are the moments you want to reward. See, that's how you teach the objective. And when you win the toy, all right, when you win the toy from the dog, don't just let the dog have it like immediately right away again. Like, or don't just like, you're holding them in front of their face. Oh, I want it from you. Please grab it. Please grab it. To use that opportunity to teach them the objective. Like, oh, I want it. Oh, I win. I have possession. Right? I'm playing keep away with it. You can't get it. And when the dog's making a good effort to regain possession, then I allow them to grab it. And then we're back to playing again. You see how that works? And with fetch, the objective of the game is for the dog to chase and catch the toy. So this is something that comes natural to the dog. Dogs have a natural desire to chase and catch the toy, but you have to teach them this. All right. And so I'll start out in the beginning by just throwing the toy a short distance. encouraging, I'll kind of move it a little bit. I'll make it pray, and then I'll throw the toy a short distance. And then when they grab it, I'll celebrate. Nice job, man. Nice job. And then I'll call them back to me. So the next point is to match the dog's skill level. All right. The game is only fun when both parties are evenly matched. So imagine like you were playing tennis for the first time ever. You know, you're just getting into it, and your first match is against Roger Federer, best tennis player in the world. And you just get absolutely annihilated the whole match. This is not going to be fun for you, and it's not fun for him either. There is such a large skill discrepancy between the players that the game isn't even fun at that point, right? And it's the same with the dog, all right? When I first started playing tug with Arrow, for instance, he wasn't super confident in his grips. You know, he wouldn't bite down on the toy super hard. And so I carefully recognized this and then brought myself down to his skill level, careful not to overpower him in the play, to be too much. You see, a lot of people make this mistake where they kind of come in and they just overpower the dog with their physical might. And the dog learns that they're just no match for your ability. Like they'll never be as strong as you. They'll never be as good as you. They'll never be able to win it from you. And it's just not fun, right? It's just not fun for the dog. It doesn't encourage them to bring any more effort to the table. They just give up. And so be careful not to overpower them. You can handicap yourself like intentionally. So like, for example, when I was playing tug with him, sometimes instead of like looping my hands through the handle, I just hold it just like with 2 fingers. Really. And so like I'm handicapped myself. If you win it from me like this, you actually want it from me. And then I make 3 fingers, you see? And then I'm grabbing the toy like this, and then I'm looping my hands in the handle. You see, so I work my way up and I reduce the handicap. And on the other side of the spectrum, you don't want to underpower them either. So you don't want them to feel like bored playing with you, basically. Now, this happens a lot, especially amongst the people who had a real tough time teaching the dog to play. You know, sometimes I'll see owners who really made a fantastic effort to teach the dog to play. You know, maybe it took a couple months just to get to this point where they're playing with them, and they're very hesitant or cautious or afraid to do anything that might hurt their play, right? Which is understandable. But what happens here is they plateau in the play. And then they say things like, oh, you know, he's getting more distracted during the play. You know, he's not as interested or as excited as he once was. I don't know what's happening. And then I see a video of it and I'm like, try actually winning it from him. Just try. And they're like, okay. And then they try, right? They try to take toy out of his mouth and they can't. Right, because now the dog is like, right, and they're like shaking on it, right, and they're like, they're bringing more power to the table like almost immediately, and they're like, Miles, I can't, and they're like, well, try to figure out how you can. Try to figure it out, right? Like for example, with Arrow, like little things that I do is like, obviously I cannot, like once I built Arrow's grips up to the point where he was real confident gripping on it, there's no way I can take that out of his mouth, and so I'd have to rely on like little sneaky tactics, little clever tricks that I could deploy into the play, right? Cleverness is how I would win the game. So for instance, I do little things like, you know, we'd be tugging, and then I would blow in his face and then try to take the toy out of his mouth like really quick. Or I would cover his eyes and then try to take it. Or I would sweep his front 2 legs with my foot. Like I'd sweep it and then he have to jump over my legs and I try to take the toy out. So like little things like this, I'm trying to trick him. Like I would take my hand and then I go like this and then pinch his flank, right? And then try to take the toy out. One time we were playing tug and then he was holding on to it, right? Holding on to it. And then I would just get tired, right? So it's so exhausting. And I just get tired and I take a break. And then he kind of takes a break too. And just try to rip it out of his mouth. You see, I'm trying to trick him. I'm trying to catch him off guard. I'm trying to see how I can win it. Like I can't win it physically from him anymore, but let's see how I can win it in other ways. There's one time we were out in the backyard and we were playing, and then I was like, "Oh, what's that on the ground?" And I just like pointed at the ground. I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And then he was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then he got distracted and he let go of the toy so he could see what I was pointing at. And I took the toy. Oh, I got it. And I ran away from him. And like little things like this, you see how like you are. Like now the game becomes like a little bit more different. It takes this new evolution of of competition between me and him. And so yeah, that's enough on that. But that's matching the dog's skill level. Be careful not to overpower or underpower them in the play. Then, of course, we're also teaching the rules and the consequences of how the game should be played. So when we are teaching games to the dog, we have roles as the handler, as the human. On one hand, we're a player, so we're playing with the dog as an equal. But on the other hand, we're also a referee who is enforcing the rules of the game and how the game should be played. So the first is, of course, the out command, right? When I tell you to out, you must let go of the toy. If you don't, there is a consequence. In the same way how if you're playing soccer and the referee blows the whistle, you must stop play. It's the same. It's an interruption in the game. And so that is the out command. We've got the bring, all right? So when I throw the ball for you and you go and fetch after it, you chase it, you catch it, and you must bring the toy back. Like you're not gonna run off with the toy and go chew it by yourself. Like that is not how the game is played. You see, same with tug, right? If you win possession of the toy from me, you don't just run away from it and start chewing the toy by yourself. This is why we have leashes on the dog to make control. We don't encourage this behavior. This is not allowed. This is not how we play the game. You see, it's kind of the same as like if you were playing basketball and one of the kids just like took the ball and just like ran away with it, just left. Or like you were playing soccer and one of the kids just like picked it up with their hands and just like ran out of the game and went and like threw it in the net. It's like, this is not how the game is played. You see, this is not how we play it. And so it's your job to set those boundaries and enforce them as the referee of the game. And then we have other things, of course, like littler things, right? Don't bite the handle of the tug toy, bite the actual tug, right? Don't jump on me during the play if you don't like that, right? Don't bite my pant legs and stuff. Like you see, you got these other rules in the game as well. It's like in soccer, you can't, go and body check this player who doesn't even have the ball right now. You see, like little things like this are important to set in the play. And so those are the rules. But you see how this is step 2, right? This is at the end as well. We do this once the dog has a kind of basic understanding of the objective of the game and they're enjoying playing the games. Now we start adding some complexity to the games, right? And you kind of see how the evolution takes. It's the same process that it is for kids, for instance, right? Like when you're teaching little kids how to play a game, like for example, soccer, you start out just teaching the objective, just basic stuff. You're not worried about the rules or anything. And then you slowly add more rules over time. And the game becomes more fun and more complex and more competitive and more interesting, you see? Like that's the evolution it takes. And it's the same with the dog. At this point, we'll also add some obedience in there. And obedience, I put in parentheses here, quick and fast, is because I think a lot of times, sometimes people ruin their play with too much obedience. Honestly, it's just too much. Like they'll be asking the dog to do a million things. Like they're in the middle of playing this really fun, really intense game. And then it's like, sit down, heel, like just like a bunch of boring stuff that just murders the pace of the game, right? Keep it fun, like keep it fast, keep it quick, keep it short, right? If you're going to ask for something like make it speedy and then boom, right back to the game, right? And adding obedience in there here and there is fine, but don't accidentally hurt the game because you're adding too much obedience. I see people make that mistake all the time. So step 3 is to create obsession. This is really how you get the dog from going from like 80% power to 100% power. This is like the last like 20% of it, giving the dog to bring the absolute maximum that they can. So for this, the first point is just more, longer, better. So just play more, play longer, and play better. The more you play the game, the more fun it becomes. It's just like if you play a sport for the first time, it's not that fun in the beginning, but the more you play it, the better you get. The more you play it, the more competitive it gets, the more you understand the game, the more you understand the rules, the more it just becomes more fun the more you play it. And it's the same with the dog. And so for play, we play every day together. Every day, except for Sundays. Sundays is our rest day, right? This gives the dog a chance to recover. But we play a game every day, whether it's tug or whether it's fetch. We play every day. We make it a priority. The next piece is to create the illusion of control. So making him feel like he's able to control or influence my behavior. So for instance, like there are some times where, especially in the beginning, like I'd come outside and I'd have that ball like in my pocket or something. And I would just wait, right? Like he knows we're about to play. He's all excited. He's ready to go. He's like, let's do this. And I just wait, right? And I'm just looking at him. And then he starts getting a little frustrated, right? And he'll bark at me. Ooh, and I'll back up a little bit. He barks again. Ooh, back up again. Barks again. Ooh, barks again. And then boom, pop the ball and throw it. All right. And he explodes into it. That's that little switch. It makes him feel like he's in control, like he's the one influencing me. He's the one telling me, hey, pop that ball. Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play fetch right now. It switches the how he perceives it. He now feels like he's able to control me or influence me. It gives him the illusion of control. And this makes him feel more powerful when he comes into the play. The next piece is to create frustration. Right? Frustration is a big piece of capturing that last 20% to increase the dog's drive, the dog's desire to catch that toy or to win possession of that toy, to frustrate them. The key is to make just the right levels of frustration where you're encouraging them just to bring a little bit more to the table, a little more power, make a little more effort, and you'll get it next time. And that's how you kind of squeeze out that last 20%. So miss, restrain, withhold. 3 different ways you can create frustration. So to miss is like in the context of tug, right? I release the dog onto the toy, I'm holding it, and then he believes he's about to catch it and then just miss right at the last second, right? And he's like, wait, and then he comes back and tries to get it again, miss right at the last second. He's like, oh, I want to get this next time. And then he gets it this next time. You see, just a little bit of frustration in there by making those well-timed misses during the tug. Restrain. So to actually restrain the dog physically, holding him back on a leash, holding him by the collar, right? Having the toy out in front of him. Like sometimes I would do this during the fetch. I'd out him and I'd hold his collar and I'd kick the ball. I'd kick the ball. He'd kind of move towards it, but he's restrained because I'm holding him and he's barking. Right? He's trying to get to it. I kick it again. He's like, I really want to get it. And then I kick it and then I release him and he gets it. Right? So just that little bit of restraint can increase the dog's desire to get the thing and then he gets it. You see, just bring it again, squeezing it, bringing a little bit more power to the table. The last piece is to withhold the thing that he wants. So, you tell him to out, for instance, you have that ball, you're holding it, you're withholding it. Like he wants it, but he can't get it. You're withholding it from him and he's barking at you. He's frustrated. He's like, give me that thing. And then you can reward that. You see, so just different ways to create that frustration and then rewarding the dog when they bring that to the table. But the key is to use the right amount, right? If you make the dog too frustrated, they can just quit. All right, so the key is to bring the right levels of frustration and then reward it. Another piece I have for you is low distraction play over high distraction play, right? I think a lot of people underestimate the power of low distraction of playing in low distraction environments. All right, sometimes we can get a little ahead of ourselves and want to play in all different types of environments, and the dog is just too concerned with the environments. They're not fully in love with the game yet. They're not fully obsessed, so to speak. And it helps just to play in those low distraction environments. Get the dog all the way there, and it transfers so much easier when you go to those higher distraction environments later on. This piece here, ball equals prey. Take note of how the dog likes to naturally express their prey drive, and then allow him to do that during the play. So for example, I noticed that when Arrow sees wildlife in the environment, he points, right? He'll freeze, he'll fixate, and he'll point at them. And he'll kind of slowly stalk them, and then he explodes into them. And so I noticed that, and so I would channel that into the fetch. I would channel it, right? And so like I'd hold the ball and just let him fixate on it. Just let him fixate. And you can see like he'll point at it and he'll start shaking. He shakes at it, his pupils just dilate. And then I'll throw it, I'll let him explode into it, right? And that's just a little thing that I think sometimes people can miss those little things as well. And it allows him to express that natural prey drive within him. The last piece I have for you here in creating obsession is something I call the infinite fetch glitch. All right, so the infinite fetch glitch is when the dog enters a trance-like state where they're all consumed by the game. They're just compulsively fetching at this point. The infinite fetch glitch, it typically occurs around the 20-minute mark, and I've seen this most frequently amongst the herding breed dogs. And during this glitch, the dog shows no signs of physical regulation. So, like, not all dogs have this, but you'll know if your dog does because they are not playing normally. They're not fetching normally. Like, usually the dog has like a cadence to the play. They like you throw the ball, chase after it, bring it back, and they kind of have like a regular cadence to it, a very similar kind of behavior pattern. Once they get to this point and they cross over, you'll see a very different behavior from the dog. So, like, for example, with Arrow, he would, like, when he typically plays fetch, he'll chase after it, bring the toy back, and he'll kind of just hang out with me for a little bit, get some affection, and then he'll out it, and then we'll play again. And there's like this very predictable cadence to it. It's a little bit slower of a pace, but when he gets to this point, he just is compulsively fetching. Like, he'll just chase after it, bring it back, out. And he's like ready for the next one. And I pick it up and he's like shaking. And then I throw it and he chases it, catches it, bring it back, out. And it's like automatic. It's like this pattern that he doesn't ever enter regularly, like at the beginning of the game. And that's why I call it the infinite fetch glitch, is because it never ends. It doesn't stop. It's infinite. Like, typically the dog would, get tired and they take a break on their own and they kind of settle down and they self-regulate themselves. But at this point here, like when you get to this stage, the dog doesn't show that physical regulation. Like, they don't show those signs. Like, they'll continue indefinitely. And so if your dog enters this state, you should be very careful not to overdo it, because the dog is operating in a mental state that carries a significantly higher risk of injury. They're no longer regulating themselves physically. However, playing fetch for a few minutes while the dog is in this state can have a huge impact on creating that obsession with the game later on, right? So if your dog does have this glitch within them, and again, it's not all dogs do, it's a very small percentage of dogs that do have this, but if your dog does have this, just playing a few minutes in this zone can really help create that obsession with the game. So that's the infinite fetch glitch. And that's it. Those are the 3 steps I did to create that obsession with play.